Where was I?
Barbados.
So, while in Barbados, this has to do with my behavior and how it relates to redemption and how God uses some of your problems to enlighten other people of His presence in your life. So I'm down in Barbados on an assignment. Came in, got some local drugs, and which is twice as strong or sometimes 3 times as strong as it is in the States. So volume-wise, I'm looking at the same amount for me. But once I got in there, I started snorting coke, and I had this excruciating pain in my chest. I couldn't hardly breathe. I couldn't think. The only thing I did is I got in that bed, laid out in the form of a cross, and I just prayed and prayed and prayed. So after the doctor pointed it out to me, I said, "Oh yeah, I remember what happened." So when they asked me what did I do, I told them. I said, "That's what I did." So, and I never forget it. I said, "Oh yeah, I remember." And Ernie was sitting next to me, and the doctor was sitting over there. And I said, "Okay, I remember now. Yeah, she read it." And the doctor leaned back in his chair and said, "So you didn't know it?" I said, and the pain was so excruciating until I just couldn't even think. I couldn't even, I said, so I got in the bed and I laid out in the form of a cross. And I just prayed and prayed and prayed. It seemed like I prayed forever until it stopped. I said, so, I do remember now. I said, you're right. That's probably where it came from. But then they both said, so Mr. Bennett, Ernisa said, so William, when you got back, and then the doctor said, yes, when you got back, Mr. Bennett, what did the doctor say? I said, did you go to the doctor? And I said, I didn't go to the doctor. And she said, well, you didn't think you should go to the doctor? I mean, you'd had a heart attack. I said, well, first of all, I didn't know I had a heart attack. I didn't know what it was. I said, the other thing is, though, I prayed. I did what I knew to do with every problem I've ever had. So, it wasn't no different than anything else to me. Jesus is the answer. So I prayed until it stopped. Then they said this. So you didn't think that maybe when you got back, you should just go get a checkup just to see? And I kind of looked at it like this. I said, well, who was gonna validate how I am better than Jesus did? So when it stopped, I was healed. To me, I looked at it like I prayed, the Lord delivered me. So it's like He didn't tell the man, to go and wash in the pool 7 times. He says to go down there and come back. The fact that you believe Jesus Christ is what makes it come true, So I believe Jesus Christ. So when I wish I could have told him if I'd have been thinking properly. I said I prayed. I would have told him I prayed. So what do you do when you get through praying? Do you go see anybody? I don't. Because when I pray, that's as far as I can go with anything. Now, if the Lord had led me to do something, this is why. This is why I didn't have to see a doctor. See, that becomes relevant now. I didn't see a doctor 30 years ago. But today in a podcast, I can explain that to me, I went to the only source I'll ever need about anything. And it worked. And then that further validated. Now, I can tell you something else.